and I wanted to give a shout out to all the fathers out there and stepfathers. Happy Father's Day. I hope that you have a wonderful day and it's well deserved. And there are definitely people that I know who are fathers or stepfathers who are incredible men. And I think that we should take this day and make it about them and appreciate them and the value added they have provided for us. And yeah, I don't know. It's still going to be a heavy video, not as heavy as the last few videos regarding what's going on in the Middle East and in the USA and things like that. I'm going to cover obviously some of it because some of it's very important. And but just before I even get into that, like on my social media in the last 24, 48 hours, I have seemed to offend yet again people on both sides of the political spectrum or ideological spectrums for sharing data and interpretation of that data. And it's still like just like people think that I actually care about the trolling, and I will comment on some trolls, and then I'll even screen capture it, and I will share it, and I will post it not only to my friends and we laugh about it, but I also share it publicly as well. And so when you're coming at me as a troll and trying to allege that I'm a scammer, even though I pay for my content to be put out there, ladies and gentlemen, for now, I'm hoping that at some point, oh, went black. I'll wait till it goes back on. Maybe if I go solo. What's going on here? As soon as I ranted, okay, maybe I got too hot and heavy for that. But yeah, the trolling never ceases to stop, and people think that I care. Like my account is public. I give my full name, and even when I go as Don18 on Rumble, I have said repeatedly that my name is Don Dussault, and yeah, so I put myself out there because what I'm sharing is important information, and your response to it, it's not my business, you know, obviously unless you make it my business. And if you are extreme with your comments, by the way, I will block you. And that has nothing to do with censorship or like not allowing people to have a platform to ask me questions or to clarify things that I've said that they might think be wrong. No, I'm talking about the trolling types, like your time in the spotlight, you know, it'll get there because I will literally screen capture your content and share it. Show people how friggin' ridiculous you sound, respectfully speaking. Yeah, so I'm still blacked out here. But I'll play this. This is from Moose on the Loose. And yeah, I really like his content. I hope it would be nice if someone like him and Mario, if they were, and Dan Dix, if they would actually work within the government instead of the cabinet ministers that we have now who are epic failures and have been for many years, respectfully speaking. They just don't know what they're doing, don't know what they're talking about, don't know the reality of the world. And it is what it is. And so Mario got a call from Pierre Poilievre last week. And, you know, I thought that was thoughtful. Like, I understand that there's still red flags with information that Pierre is receiving and pushing out to us, like especially with what's going on in the Middle East. And so we should be able to respectfully and peacefully be able to have a dialogue regarding that, especially since I did vote conservative and I did say that we need to give Pierre some slack and that he has not been the one that was the leader of the conservatives during COVID, the pandemic, any of that stuff. And there's only so much bandwidth he can tolerate, I guess, with so much information being flooded. And where he's getting his information from, I think, is also corrupted. And so I'm not blaming him for what he's sharing because he's getting inaccurate information from people that should know better. And people that are getting paid a lot of money in these intelligence communities, government agencies or corporations they're using. Yeah, it's propaganda. And I know people that are working in these intelligence communities. I know for a fact, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a scam or any of that stuff, that are working with intelligence agencies, that it's very, and so this to me is important. Conservative who voted for Pierre, if I can't even address like wars and crimes against humanity, etc., we're actually doing that for all people like Netanyahu. I'm talking about people like Smotrich and Ben Gvir and these annexationists, whatever you want to call them. And Bibi is trying to cover up corruption. His plane landed in Greece yesterday. People don't know if he was confirmed to be on the aircraft or not. I don't even know. I'm not tracking this morning, but if it went back to Israel already. But people are thinking there's a possibility that he was going to flee or try to manage like that corruption piece, because he's literally being investigated, and he has been for a number of years. And there are very prominent billionaires who have been under oath and under investigation as well, and they are clearly showing proof of his corruption, his criminality, and his wife and the people that he's been affiliated with. These people are being named. So I'll reiterate the BB files and stuff like that. Like I shared that with Michelle Ferrari. I shared the BB files, so there's no excuse, right? When people are sharing it and we're being respectful, I'm not threatening anyone. I'm not being mean. I'm being professional. And I'm saying respectfully, please just watch this video, because what you're sharing is misinformation. And if you're going to be, a paid government worker, you probably need to watch this. And the justification for people not watching it is they're like, oh, the link, it might be like a link to like a bad site or a virus or whatever. You don't have the right. You don't have the right in your job to refuse to look at information that is fact-based and very pertinent information, life-saving information, impactful information, just because you're afraid. And first of all, they're not even afraid of a virus hitting their computers. Like there's ways that you can have, if you have proper security settings on your laptop or your device, you're fine. And if you work within the government, we know for a fact that like the very high end cybersecurity, IT security, all of that stuff. And if you even did get hacked, which again, people like me are not giving you hacked videos, we're giving you actually legit links. So if you can't even decipher that, you're also a moron for that as well. If you're not on Proton, but if you're not on a VPN like Proton Plus, connecting from other countries to get information as well, you are not suitable to be in your job. This is like basic security 101 in the cyber warfare environment we have been in now for decades. And so there's no excuse for ignorance anymore when we're literally giving you the information and you are refusing to look at it, and your talking points are all the same. It's ridiculous. So anyways, Mario got a call from Pierre, which I thought was thoughtful, and taking time out of his day, and it was deserved, rightfully so, because Mario has been incredible and he has been at this for a while, and he doesn't need to be providing content either. So if anyone wants to call him a scammer as well, you are literally out of your mind, respectfully. Like, he is literally rich, and just like me, gets paid no money for sharing actual data to people. That is really important. That, again, this is stuff that's going to like assist in reconstructing, whatever you want to call it, our country. And people are saying like, oh yeah, like, he's whatever. But if Pierre was open to having a meeting or discussion with me, I have volunteered that many times, as people know. And I just think it would be value added, because I'll just leave it at that. It would be value added.
Oh, that doesn't exist, obviously. That is a decarbonized oil.
Anyway, Moose on the Loose. This is Rosemary Barton, who I think should be fired and never work with or around government ever again in her life, respectfully speaking, unless she was willing to finally tell the truth. I don't know. It's a stretch.
That doesn't exist, obviously. That is a gross contradiction.
Big energy projects, boom or bust. What are we going to see here in Canada? Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we got an interview with Rosemary Barton and Tim Hodgson talking about green hydrogen, carbon capture. I've got other clips to contradict this interview to show you how stupid it is, because we've got a chemical engineer with 35 years of experience who debunks green hydrogen. On top of that, we got a handful of other stories. Let's jump into this. Yesterday, there was a parade in America for their 250th anniversary, as well as Donald Trump's birthday. And now there's people protesting across Canada against Donald Trump in places like Ottawa, when Donald Trump is going to be in Kananaskis. Protesting him in Ottawa seems silly, but...
Well, if I can be honest, I'm terrified. I'm up here, I'm safe for now, but I feel like a lot of people in the U.S. understand that what's happening in the United States right now is very similar to what was happening in Germany in the 1930s.
As a dual citizen, I am extremely concerned that the country that I lived in for most of my life is under a dictatorship. And my concern is that he will take over Canada.
These people are so extreme. Donald Trump's not going to come steal our water and steal our land and steal everything.
Canadian protest organizers say peaceful, no tyrant rallies are being held in solidarity with the U.S. protests and in reaction to the Trump administration that has cracked down on free speech, detained people for their political views, and threats to deport American citizens with military force. But today,
these protesters think Donald Trump's going to come round up Canadians, and it is nutty. That's not what's going to happen. Now, it is possible and seems likely he's using economic force to gain access to our critical resources, our oil and gas, critical minerals, at a bargain barrel price, but he's not going to just round up and capture people and send his goons all across Canada, capturing people with nets. Big, bad, scary Donald Trump. It's ridiculous. These people are being goofy. Embarrassing crowd. Why protest in Canada? Exactly. How ridiculous. We need to pay attention to local governments, as this is where things happen that directly affect citizens. Talking about Trump, who is thousands of hours away, is ridiculous. Why are they protesting a leader of a different country? This one right here. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, ever. Next up, we got this on Parliament Hill. I like the quote here from Chris Stacey. A whole bunch of question marks. Why are all these Calistanis standing on Parliament Hill? Why? Well, the bright side, at least they're not chanting for the end of Modi right now. Chris Stacey has other clips. I can't show them, but a bunch of these guys are standing here on Parliament Hill with religious pokey pokes, swords, other pokey pokes. Chris Stacey confronted the police and said, why are these guys walking around with swords hanging from their belts? They're allowed because they're religious. Isn't that ridiculous? They don't allow hockey sticks or flagpoles, but they can walk around with swords. Our country is stupid. They are mad Modi is coming to town. Yeah, they are mad. I'm surprised they don't have their little jail set up there that they usually put on those trucks, chanting for his end. Next up, we got this interview here from Tim Hodgson, Rosemary Barton on CBC. He says quite a bit here. This guy's going to double and triple down on Mark Carney's agenda, net zero, so they can all get rich off of this.
It will need to honor our obligations to climate change.
You've talked about a grand bargain to describe what will happen with the country in Alberta, as has the Premier of Alberta. What does that mean? That we're going to get more pipelines, but only if we deal with climate change? What's the bargain?
In Saskatoon, we spent quite a bit of time talking about two particular examples that bubbled up from the premiers. One was the Western Infrastructure Corridor, which they're now calling port to port to port, or the Western Arctic Corridor, and then the Eastern Energy Partnership. If you look at both of those initiatives in those corridors, you would see many, many types of infrastructure. You would see ports, you would see roads, you would see railways, you would see transmission lines. On the East Coast, you might see offshore wind.
Right.
Offshore wind, huh? That green hydrogen. Let's just jump into that for a few minutes here. It's time to crack this nut open. So what exactly is green hydrogen? We hear Mark Carney's Minister of Energy, Tim Hodgson, speak about, as well as Premier Tim Houston of Nova Scotia. Well, green hydrogen, I've already mentioned it multiple times. It's a scam. We've got a chemical engineer here in this video, Paul Martin. This guy with Spitfire Research, been a chemical engineer for 35 years. He breaks down exactly what this is, the nuts and bolts of it. In this first clip, he's going to talk about energy loss. Green hydrogen is incredibly inefficient. Before we get into the first one here, let's just break down what is green, blue, gray, and black hydrogen. So green hydrogen is hydrogen used with renewable energy. And this is what Brookfield wants. What happens here is they have to use solar, wind, that kind of energy. And when that energy isn't being pulled from the grid, the excess energy doesn't get used. Now, if they build these wind farms, there'll always be a demand for green energy. Considering that's a part of Brookfield's portfolio, this would make them more money and then thus make Mark Carney more money. So breaking this down, green hydrogen is made from renewables. Blue hydrogen is made from natural gas with carbon capture, and gray or black hydrogen is made from natural gas with no carbon capture. Black is the dirtiest, blue is middle of the road, and green is the cleanest. But green takes the most amount of energy, which comes from wind and solar. With that in mind, hydrogen energy is incredibly inefficient. It shouldn't be used for electric vehicles or for anything else, really. There's a few specific cases where this would make sense to have hydrogen energy as a source of power. But listen to what Paul Martin has to say about its efficiencies here.
And you can see the losses there are quite substantial. So we lose 30% of the energy on making hydrogen, then we lose between 10 and 40% more making it into something else or compressing it for storage, and then we lose another 40 to 50% feeding it into a fuel cell or a turbine. And the very best case, and you take the most optimistic figures there and multiply them by one another, you get 37% efficiency. The answer there is, conclusion is really clear that that is really terrible battery.
So green hydrogen, terrible for batteries, terrible for power in general, because it's incredibly inefficient, 37%. This next segment here, he talks about how green hydrogen only accounts for 1%. 99% of hydrogen is created from fossil fuels, meaning that Tim Houston and Mark Carney and Tim Hodgson wanted to invest in this green hydrogen off the coast of Nova Scotia. This is another pipe dream. This is just like the EVs, all the companies they invested in that have all gone broke. This is another pipe dream. We have resources in the ground. We have trillions of dollars we can make money from, and yet they want to go chasing this because Brookfield can make money off of it.
Basically all of it, 99-ish% of it is made from fossils without carbon capture, which makes it actually more emissive when used as a fuel than if you just burned gas itself. A lot of it is made from petroleum and used in petroleum refining. I mean, those two sources and uses almost balance. A little bit is made as a byproduct of making things like bleach and sodium hydroxide in the chlor-alkali process. And some of that.
You hear that? He's basically saying because it's less efficient, it's worse for the environment to use hydrogen. What happens if Mark Carney starts giving billions of dollars over to Nova Scotia to build windmills out in the ocean, chasing another fantastical energy source that won't work out? This is another disaster waiting to happen.
Might see onshore wind that delivers clean hydrogen to Europe. There's a number of these. What we talked about was putting those together in combinations, which are a net benefit to Canada. One of them is obviously carbon capture and carbon sequestration. One of the things that was talked about was if we were going to move forward with a pipeline, it would be done in conjunction with a major effort around carbon sequestration.
And that's because they can make money off that, because Brookfield dominates that industry. And these guys are all a bunch of greedy schmucks who don't care about Canadians, only care about the bottom line, how much money they pull into their own bank accounts. You don't have to trust me. It's all on the board here. Everything's backed with sources. Mark Carney, board member of Stripe founding member of the Frontier Group. Frontier Group got $1 billion from Alphabet, Shopify, Meta, and McKinsey to create this carbon credit market, essentially providing money up front so they don't go bust. And these carbon credits get created into low integrity and high integrity removals. What Brookfield would be targeting here is these high integrity, direct air capture, all these kind of things that the average person couldn't do. These generate high value carbon credits, which get sold to companies like oil companies who then can say they have green oil. Their oil is not any different. They just paid someone to say that their oil is better now because they paid for someone else to pull CO2 out of the air. This is all a big scam. And on the back end of it, you've got all these guys like Mark Carney, Michael Moritz, who used to be former partner of Sequoia Capital, all investing money into Stripe, Stripe being at the epicenter of this, as well as other people all invested in Stripe into carbon capture to create a market that if they can get everyone on board, then the company who has the biggest foothold in carbon capture, Brookfield, would make the most amount of money off of it. And who's got stock options in Brookfield and probably a whole bunch of stocks? It's Mark Carney. In this next clip, he's going to explain how much energy it's going to take to create green hydrogen.
Well, if we just do simple math, we use a very optimistic 50 kilowatt hours per kilogram for electrical generation of hydrogen from water, and we have to replace 90 million tons a year of this stuff. We come up with needing 4,500 terawatt hours of electricity, and if we had electricity to feed those electrolyzers 24/7, that would be 513 gigawatts of electrolyzers running at 100% capacity factor. And you can see that, in the world in 2019, we only made 2,100 terawatt hours of wind and solar on the entire Earth. Now that's growing by leaps and bounds year over year, but still we need twice as much energy and then some as we made in 2019 from wind and solar in order to just replace the hydrogen that we're going to need post-decarbonization. So this is a massive problem just to green the existing hydrogen supply. So it is a bit of a puzzle as to why people would be pitching the notion of using it in inefficient uses like heating or transport.
If there's no puzzle here, it's because companies will make money from this. That's all this is. So as he shows here, they need 4,500 terawatt hours to transition all the hydrogen to green hydrogen, but the world only produces 2,100 terawatt hours, less than half. The more demand for green hydrogen in Canada means the more demand for power, green, clean power that Brookfield produces. Brookfield has projects all over the world like this one. Brookfield Renewable launches 200 million green hybrid bonds to fund ESG projects. It says here, green financing strategy for its global renewable portfolio, which spans hydroelectric, wind power, emerging sustainable solutions like carbon capture. The company operates over 35,000 megawatts of capacity with development pipeline of 200,000 megawatts. We've got this one here, the Granite Reliable.
Yeah, you get the hint with this too. Like, he shares so much incredible information. And this guy,
both Alberta and
a literal genius chemist with over 35 years of experience, is he's getting censored by people like Rosemary Barton and that bureaucrat, whatever his name was, like she had on her show, and they're being seen as the experts. The experts. It's almost hilarious if it wasn't so terrifying how friggin' corrupted these people are. Yeah,
it would significantly decarbonize the oil sands. That would be an important part.
Talk again, because it's just
the Pathways Alliance is something that has been put forward by the 6 large proponents. It would significantly decarbonize the oil sands. That would be an important part of this process.
One of the things that the Prime Minister said and others have said is decarbonized oil. That doesn't exist, obviously. That is a gross contradiction. Oil contains carbon. So what are we supposed to understand by that? So
look, the carbon the Canadian industry has been incredibly innovative. It has used technology over the years to reduce its carbon footprint.
Sure.
I have watched
Sure.
the carbon intensity of a barrel of oil from Canada has been going down and down and down. The Pathways Initiative would significantly reduce the carbon footprint from the oil sands as much as 30%.
Why? Why would we do that when China's opening up a new coal-fired power plant every week? It's because you guys want to get rich off those carbon credits and Brookfield stock. We're not stupid, guys. I already showed in that previous report from WWF, we're already carbon neutral. Canada's already carbon neutral, guys. We have so many peatlands and bogs and trees and forests and marshlands that suck up all our carbon. We have tons of money in the ground. We just need to ship it around the world. These guys want to decarbonize oil because they'll get rich off of it.
That is a big positive step forward.
So that's how you define decarbonized oil.
It is applying new technologies to reduce the carbon footprint of each barrel of oil.
One of the
That's absurd. I just showed you guys a 35-year chemist proving that is nearly impossible. It wastes a ton of energy. It's not efficient. It's an absolutely stupid thing to go after.
problems with the Pathways Alliance, though, as you know, is that it has been kind of at a standstill for many years, really. And a recent study says that it would be very hard for it to even break even, that it is probably not going to be sustainable if there is no government funding behind it. Is that something the government would be willing to get involved in order to reach these goals?
I think the government has said in particular particular situations
Yep.
where there is support from other governments, like provinces, we are prepared to put money to work to catalyze. So I'll use the example of LNG, because I think that's a success story that Canadians don't really understand. We had no LNG industry 5 years ago. With the support of the provincial government in British Columbia and the federal government, we put roughly $1 billion to work. There's been almost $60 billion of private sector investment, much of it resulting in Indigenous ownership.
Why does that matter? There's 5% Indigenous in this country. These guys never talk about Canadians and Canadian prosperity. It's always about Indigenous or LGBTQ. The rest of Canada always gets dropped off on the wayside. When is enough here, guys? This guy's such a freeloader, freeloading off of Mark Carney's agenda. He doesn't care as long as he gets rich. He knows how he talks the same way. We put $1 billion to work, catalyze.
To build an LNG business in British Columbia that produces the cleanest LNG in the world. That is a win for Canada.
It's not a win that you guys don't want to build any more of these projects. It's not a win that these projects aren't getting built. They haven't been getting built for 10 years. And now they want to do them only if they can put Brookfield in the middle of all of it.
That is a win for everybody.
Speaking of British Columbia, they are not interested in any further pipelines going to the West Coast. If a province says we don't want this, is this dead on arrival, these ideas that the Premier of Alberta has?
That's not true. It's not British Columbians, it's David Eby. David Eby does not represent British Columbians. He needs to be thrown out of office because he's a radical loser.
So I think what we heard when we were in Saskatoon is that we're looking at a totality of what happens. I think if there is a hypothetical oil pipeline with nothing else,
Mic is on.
We've heard the answer. There's a whole bunch of things that can be done.
Ways to convince them to do it. Is that what you mean?
There are all kinds of things what I saw was all the premiers coming together saying, hey, if we all work together, we all do things that
Premier
help.
Eby wasn't there, so I'm not sure that's the case for him.
his deputy premier was there. And I'm not going to speak for the Prime Minister or the Premier of British Columbia, but I think they talk fairly regularly.
So you don't think that a no from BC is an actual no, that there's possibilities there?
We're talking about a hypothetical project.
Sure.
God, these people are just so annoying. Anyways, Moose on the Loose. Check out his content. I mean, this guy's great, honestly. And I do want to share. My freaking video is not working, which is annoying again. Thank you, CSIS CIA. I'm just kidding. This is my grape tomatoes. They're already delicious. I'm already eating some of them. Ooh. I don't know why I'm showing that, but yeah. So this was from Mario, who I was just talking about before, Zalea. 10 years ago, this never existed in Canada. Drugs, he's talking about safe supply, handed out by the government, claiming Canada is stolen land, Pride being a month, it was a weekend, protesters calling for the death of Canada, uncontrolled immigration, punishing law-abiding firearms owners, burning Catholic churches while politicians stay quiet, property crime being higher in Toronto than Detroit, research by Fraser Institute, luxury tax, carbon tax, digital service tax pending, AC surcharges, like increase in property tax, you name it. We're going to be getting taxed so much under Carney. Record food bank usage, correct. Drag shows for kids in public libraries, correct. Major wait times for healthcare, including a lack of family doctors, correct. Bail, not jail for criminals. Yeah. So take a look at Mario's work too. Mario Zalea. City government of Cranbury, New Jersey approved seizure of 175-year-old family farm by eminent domain so they can replace what they're calling affordable housing. What we're talking about now with population and housing, it's there's a lot of friggin' information regarding that, rabbit holes you can go down, and the overdevelopment and what happens with that. Blackouts and power outage, all that stuff. More pollution.
Okay. My daughter
more crime.
was a 29-year-old nurse who was killed by the Pfizer vaccine. And I talk to vaccine-injured people every day. They're being ignored.
So
they are hurting. They aren't getting disability. They aren't getting help from anybody. What are we going to do about this?
I'm so sorry. Y'all couldn't hear that back here, but her daughter is 29, passed away as a complication of the Pfizer vaccine. Is that right? The COVID vaccine? It is an issue around the country, and it hasn't been given the due attention that it needs. We'll have some hearings in the new Congress about that to figure out who's responsible and why. was there adequate warning and all the rest? It's affected a lot of families around the country. So I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
So sorry.
I'm a pharmacist. Yeah. I saw the warnings.
Yeah.
They were out there. I was censored.
You were censored?
I was censored on social media, and my daughter died because of it.
Well, she says that some of the warnings were out there, and she tried to share it, and she was censored on social media. That is not a conspiracy theory. That actually happened. You know it did. In fact, there was a big court case that came out on July 4th, not this year, but previous year, 143 pages. The Western District of Louisiana, a federal court looked at all the evidence, and they said that the White House, the Biden-Harris White House, were working with the big tech platforms in Silicon Valley, meeting with them almost weekly through the FBI field office out there, a guy named Elvis Chan. You can Google this, okay? Well, maybe not Google. You can find it elsewhere. But they censored and silenced different viewpoints on the COVID vaccine, the dangers of it, and all that. It's all detailed in this long court opinion. He said the censorship was so great that it was dystopian in its scope. It was like it's some sort of he said it was the greatest violation of free speech in the history of the First Amendment. Okay, so that's real. It really did happen, and real people suffered because of it. We've got to make sure that people who appreciate and are willing to give their lives to protect our freedoms and the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and all of all of our fundamental freedoms. Those are the people in charge of these decisions, not the big state government elitists. And that's what happened, and that's the problem. And people literally died because of it.
People literally died because of it, as he's saying. And her 29-year-old daughter, that is a friggin' nightmare. I'm assuming for a mother, like the worst thing that could possibly happen. 29 years old, and her daughter was a nurse. Her mother, she said that she was a pharmacist and that she was sharing the warnings, and she was censored. I can't believe this woman is like, she's a hero. Like, she has gone through so much, and what she's doing now is trying to get information out and share it in order to make it where this never happens again. A living nightmare. And oh my goodness, I just feel so freaking bad for people like this.
Yes, ma'am. Front row. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. Minnesota lawmaker and her husband killed in politically motivated shooting, Wall says. And so friggin' sad, man. Yeah. So police have recovered writings that mention the names of multiple lawmakers and other officials in the fake police car they believe a suspect used in the shooting of two Democratic legislators in Minnesota. Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley said that the writings that were recovered identified many lawmakers and other officials. The writings were discovered when the officers searched a phony police car they believed the suspect used. Sound familiar? This has happened in Canada as well. Melissa Hortman, a former Minnesota House Speaker, and her spouse were shot and killed early Saturday in their Brooklyn Park home. Absolutely disgusting and tragic. A second state lawmaker, Senator John Hoffman, and his wife were shot multiple times in Champlin. Officials say both Hortman and Hoffman were mentioned in the suspect's writing. When we did a search of the vehicles, there was a manifesto that of course, again, these manifestos, like, this is wild. And this is what makes people feel unsafe. Like if they are in an emergency and they want to call police, like, is it going to be even police that respond? There's just so many factors to look in. And I was sharing my story from 2021 where guys tried to break into my home and then they were circling my block. And I was talking to one of my friends that's also in the international security industry. And at that point, I also knew, because of other murders, like the Honeywells and stuff like that happened within Canada and even on the East Coast, that people do pretend to be law enforcement or fire or paramedics, etc. And so you don't know, right? And so I did feel obviously unsafe, and so eventually, like, my friend, I won't say his name, but he was saying that I should, like, at least get this on the record and be safe. He's like, you know what I mean? And so I did call the non-emergency line. I'm gonna have this on the record. I could provide the receipts, and but I wanted to do the report the following day, and yeah, so I did that, and that was just a very interesting time. Oh my goodness! And so, like, the more people do these things, right? Like, the more, again, it's not helping. It's absolutely disgusting. I hope this guy gets jail for the rest of his life, for his weak, miserable friggin' life. And yes, I know he was an appointee to a certain government position by Tim Walz. Yeah, so Democrat lawmaker killed days after contentious vote on migrant health care. Anyway, just so friggin' sad. Yeah, so earlier this week, she provided the sole Democratic Farmer Labor Party vote on HF1, a bill amending the state's Minnesota care coverage eligibility. The bill, which passed the House on June 12th, enforces citizenship requirements to obtain the state's Medicaid program coverage, stripping adult undocumented immigrants of publicly funded health care. The bill was presented to Walz on June 12th.
It's real.
Okay, so this was interesting to me. How the freedom movement was hijacked and what happens next? From the beginning, Trump was positioned as the anti-establishment savior. It's now becoming clearer than ever why. They knew the people waking up to the system, those who value freedom, question government, value bodily autonomy, etc., were never going to accept biometric surveillance, expanded wars, digital IDs, Palantir's domestic surveillance, or digital currency slavery if it came from the left. But if you wrap it in an anti-globalist language, attach it to a freedom fighter persona, and present him as the one taking down the deep state, millions would not only accept these things, they'd defend them. Sounds like Netanyahu a little bit here. That's how you hijack a freedom movement without ever needing to crush it directly. It's a perfect example of controlling the opposition. Now here we are, the stage is fully set. Iran, and any nation supporting Iran, is the enemy. Pro-Palestinian voices, or anyone opposing genocide, are being framed as violent extremists. Anyone criticizing the Israeli government gets smeared as anti-Semitic or a national security threat. Trump is positioned as the one you can trust, the anti-establishment hero fighting the globalists, while quietly pushing the very same systems his base thinks he's dismantling. The freedom movement has been psychologically captured, and in my opinion, it's so freaking obvious. And that all that's left now is a trigger. That trigger likely comes in the form of some type of an event, a planned attack on U.S. soil, framed as Iranian-backed Islamic terrorism, but orchestrated behind the scenes by the CIA and Mossad, and Canadian intelligence agencies as well on that. I have a little bit different of a perspective as well. I do agree with a lot of this. This could happen. I've said it absolutely could happen. And it's something not to just dismiss. But there's also the possibility that there could be some kind of a nuclear threat that happens and it's blamed on Iran, right? Because people have been saying for many, many years now that they are in alignment and cooperating with the nuclear proliferation agreements, etc. And by the way, Israel is not, under Netanyahu especially, and that they do want nuclear energy like many other countries are already doing, like Japan and Germany, etc. And so they've been, again, their facilities have been looked at by third parties. No one wants them to have nuclear weapons, but do support the nuclear energy, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone's talking about climate change and free energy and this and that and decarbonizing the pollution, like all this stupid shit, when you can actually look at energy sources like nuclear energy to enable grids. So very interesting. So yeah, so something might happen. It could be targeting Israel or the US, and they could blame it on Iran because, again, this is what I think is being pushed, right? Which is why, anyway. And so that's just I think that's also an alternate possibility. That would be more cataclysmic. And if it happens, public sentiment flips overnight. People get emotionally hijacked and start demanding action. And that's when the next phase rolls out. This is just like 9/11, so many other events. And yeah, a lot of people died. Anyway. Full support for U.S. military involvement in the Middle East. Surveillance expansion justified under wartime necessity. Biometric tracking, facial recognition, and digital IDs as security measures. Censorship of dissent framed as national unity. Palantir's full surveillance grid activated. Digital currencies introduced as the safe, stable solution. Every piece of this is already built. They just need the emotional consent and the false flag. If it happens, isn't just about launching another war. That's the front-facing narrative. The real objective is to activate the full centralized technocratic biometric financial control grid with full public buy-in. Fear, crisis, consent, control. Yep. How more people are seeing it now. So what do we actually do? Let's see what he says. I don't want to... Anyway, we withdraw consent physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We stop feeding the fear, reacting emotionally to their narratives, and engaging in the left versus right dialectic. We fully unplug from the psychological game. I absolutely agree with that. We get local, build real relationships, real community, real resilience outside of their systems. Start trading, growing, bartering, preparing. Parallel systems are the antidote to the control systems. That's why we built thewayforward.com. Yeah, so very, very interesting. Yeah, stay grounded, stay present, stay connected, find your local tribe, remember who you are. Yeah, I like that.
It's really
checked out, we used to call it. I want to share this video. Well, let me know. Okay, so Daisy Media, the rules do not apply equally in Canada. Demonstrators are free to carry swords and daggers on Parliament Hill because of a religious exemption. You can call these weapons ceremonial, but they are also very dangerous. I posted this yesterday. And yeah, so since Moose on the Loose was talking about it here as well, this is a video 122. It's absolutely wild to me, this two-tier justice system. This is going to be triggering for some people. This is the real audio recording of Lake and Riley, sorry, oh my goodness. And yeah, it's a lot. You don't hear a lot in it until the end. And it's just so friggin' tragic that there are people that are out there, paid protesters or people that have been brainwashed by CNN. There's a lot of people that are recording these protests live. And there are people that are literally, respectfully, but like unhinged propagandists, fully psyopsed and brainwashed, that are crying, and people are asking them real simple questions like that really, like, again, about, like, just like to point out the hypocrisy in what they're saying without even giving proof. And it's like, well, where are you getting your information from? Literally saying CNN. Well, CNN, what do you mean? Mainstream media. Fact check. It's like, you are, oh my God, hopeless, respectfully speaking. And yeah. And so take a look at those videos as well. But protecting people who are not only in the US and Canada, this obviously involves more the US, but I say that usually what happens in the US, it will eventually land in Canada to lower scales and degrees, but within a year or two after, which is lame. We should be fucking doing this. And we do have people that are protesting in Canada too, by the way, which is absolutely wild to me what they're protesting. It's just get a real job or open a book. And so they're protecting people that are coming to these countries illegally, and people that are where their cultures or their religions are not compatible with the human rights. Their human rights and how they perceive human rights is not the same as people within Western societies, the traditional Western culture and religions. And so they're justifying rape and murder, things like that, based on cultural or religious ideologies, which is ridiculous. Like, you fled your country allegedly, you're seeking asylum, etc., from that, and you're bringing that in to the country that is also funding you, feeding you, sheltering you, etc., under taxpayers' dollars. It's absolutely nonsensical to me. And but there are people within government, like the Tim Walz types, these radicals on the left and right, because I can talk about Project Esther and the Heritage Foundation and how they're also radicalizing or attempting to radicalize people through their propaganda, using people like Sean Hannity and Mark Levine, etc. It's very clear. So people call out the left a lot, but like a lot of people are not calling out the right as well, and showing different groups or organizations that are being funded by corrupted bureaucrats internationally, and they have no idea what they're sharing is clearly biased and incorrect factually. And anyway, she was murdered, and she died afraid and alone, and she was a child.
Clark County 911. Hello, this is Clark County 911. Hello, Clark County 911. Can anyone hear me? County 911.
Sorry, I was off. I was off my mic, and so Lakin Riley, my goodness, I'm so sorry. I really hate it when I don't get these names important right. It's really important that I do. And she died of she was literally getting choked to death during that period after getting smashed repeatedly in the face and other areas. And so she died of asphyxiation and blunt force trauma trying to call 911 to get help. So sad. And people that are protesting right now, that you're trying to protect criminals like that, it's absolutely horrific to me. So I couldn't even imagine if I was Lakin Riley's mother watching those protests. Absolutely disgusting. So low class.
Tim Walz must resign today. Today. Tim Walz, political appointee, Vance Bolter, was appointed in 2019 to the governor's Workforce Development Board. Tim Walz and his violent rhetoric has led his own political appointees to pretend that they are the hitmen for the Democrat Party. That's exactly what just happened in the state of Minnesota. So it's been confirmed by Minnesota police that the main suspect in the two assassinations, one successful, one attempt, where they're still in surgery, was a political appointee of Governor Tim Walz. This man right here, a leftist. This is what your violent rhetoric leads to, Democrats. And it's not an isolated incident. We've seen 6 of these in less than a year. 6 of them. This is what the Democrat Party wants. This is what the radical left wants. This is what the cult demands. If a Democrat politician even dares to vote against the party, they now know that it's open season on their lives. They're not permitted to. They're not permitted to vote with their conscience and try to, make some sense around the idea that illegal aliens that enter our country illegally and make their way to blue states are afforded free health care while actual American citizens have to pay for ours. And when we pay for ours, we subsidize theirs. Your violent rhetoric and your incitement of violence, Democrat. Tim Walz.
How many investment
This is Canada. Mark Carney's hand-picked housing minister refuses to tell Canadians how many investments and rental properties he owns. If the answer was none, he would have said so. This is just another reason why Canadians don't trust liberal housing promises. And so I posted here, he has a few, I suspect.
Properties does the minister own?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Investment is secondary to people living in homes. We need to build homes that people live in, not invest in.
The Honourable Member.
For you, Mr. Chair, he's looking for the number. How many investment properties does this Minister of Housing own?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, I think the focus here needs to be on building homes for people to live in, not building homes for investors to own.
Honourable Member.
How many rental units does this Minister of Housing own?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here to answer questions on behalf.
Yeah, so likely a few. And there's so much I want to talk about this, but I'll say, like, even in Ottawa, I know for a fact, because I know people that were part of the developers, part of the construction teams. Again, a monopoly on these companies, whatever you want to call them. And so even before houses are even built, you have people that like him that are going and they're getting approved loans, either from banks or not from banks, private lenders. They do a lot of that as well, private lenders, and so they buy this new development, and then as soon as it's even before it's even starting to be built, they're already making money off of their investment, which is absolutely disgusting to me. Get to exploit this, monopolize this, especially if you're working and he's a cabinet minister. Oh my God. And so there's been no focus or emphasis on repairing or renovating homes that are already built. I've been saying this for years as well in the area. It's really hard to find anyone that can do general labor or maintenance or repairs, because they're all working within these companies where there's a monopoly and there's a lot of money in it, and no oversight and a lot of overreach. and targeting like protected lands that should have been protected, whether they be family homes, farmland that has been in their families for generations, heritage sites, national wildlife reserves, parks, etc. This is getting taken over. We're getting overdeveloped. It's not sustainable. We've seen this in other examples of this in other countries. And it's being pushed under a socialist communist regime, radical ideologues, unfortunately, and and there's also concerns with the extreme right ideologues within the Conservative Party at this point as well. And it's just so much to unpack. And so yeah, I voted PPC in 2021. Not people, and it was hilarious. People were calling us white supremacists, right wing, etc. Too right wing for the Conservatives. Libertarians, for the most part, people identify that were voting PPC largely identify as libertarians and saw both parties as too extreme in their platforms and ideologies and what they were sharing. And so that was our option, the middle ground, ladies and gentlemen, and the more correct platform under at that time it was under Maxime Bernier. And so more balanced. And so anyway, so these, like, there's a lot of people within government that are fully on board with all of these new projects that are being pushed in these bills, and because it directly benefits them and theirs, and absolutely takes more money off of taxpayers, further hollows out our middle class, our key sector industries, and like, it's not sustainable.
Half of my department for the.
How many?
Yeah, and then they rent out these homes, these investment homes, at like a lot, like not a lot more, but at least a couple $100 more a month than what the mortgage actually is, and and so people. This is also why, like, housing within, especially if you want to rent within like major cities, is becoming more and more unaffordable. Where if you want to rent like a small home in Ottawa, you're looking at least $2,500, $2,600 a month. Upwards of, like, again, you can go like up to like $6,000, $7,000 a month, but this is insane. This is to rent small home, like a 2-bedroom. I'm talking about. Yeah, gotta watch.
I'm on the global march to Gaza in Egypt. We were stopped at a checkpoint. They took our passports. They've detained us. I'm going to show you. They put us in a barrier like animals. Look how they've locked us in. They've locked us all in. These are all activists. These are all people. We are activists from multiple countries, and they've brought the army. They've brought armed cars. They are going to take us back to the airport to deport us. We have done nothing wrong.
To all Canadian activists that are thinking about going there, you have no idea what you're getting into. Absolutely no clue. Why do you think Egypt has not accepted a single Palestinian refugee or a single Palestinian in their country? You are meddling with things that you have no idea of, zero idea, and you're finding out fast. This is how things work in third world countries. Your chance that you do here in Canada, you blocking roads, putting up smoke bombs, intimidating people,
so tough. Graffiti.
That doesn't work there. You think the type of protests that happen here are ever going to happen over there?
Definitely
with
not.
Your march to Gaza? This is what Mark Carney would call a teachable moment. A moment for all of you to learn a bit of humility, that you can't go into whatever country you want and think you can do what you do here in Canada.
And in the US now, like what's being done to us. I spent almost a month in Egypt, and it's not the same. I was talking about human rights and how people have different interpretations of human rights, depending on where you live in the world. And so there are people that are coming here, and they don't consider women's rights to be equal to men's rights. I can give you a lot of examples. I feel at this point I shouldn't have to, but I can. And this is where a lot of our immigration is coming from as well, unfortunately. And again, I'm saying I see this as a little bit of a shit show. We have to manage this a little better and make sure that we're not, taking the spots away from people that are immigrating here in a lawful way that actually do need to flee their countries for various different reasons, and not allow that exploitation. But yeah, so the human rights piece too. So like there are people that come from vastly differing cultures and backgrounds than I would say like the Western countries, how they were under this Judeo Christian codified into our laws, a type of religion. And so human rights, so women's rights, children's rights, if you're homosexual in a lot of these countries as well, like this is punishable by death, ladies and gentlemen. And so, yeah, to me, I've traveled the world, and like you people have no idea how good they have it. It's getting bad now, obviously, but we're giving examples of why it's getting bad here, right? Where we're adopting third world practices here more and more, which is like a little weird to me. But anyways, I'm rambling on. I'll let them continue.
For whatever reason, we've decided to build up this level of tolerance to get this stuff out of control. Egypt, they don't mess around. Ask yourself a single question.
And if you go to a lot of countries,
I'm on the global march to Gaza in Egypt.
If you go to places illegally, like you could go to jail, and depending on what you're doing there, like, you know, you're not protected like you think you are. Like everyone believes that everyone in other countries are just going to treat everyone.
It was brought to my attention.
It's wild.
It was brought to my attention that the sound of the little girl crying because her mother's getting deported is not even real. It's from a movie. Oh my gosh, bro. Y'all sound so dumb. Let me show you something. Liberal tears. Just wait for it. Just wait for it. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing.
You said
This is where it came from. Like, you guys just look stupid. Like, you look so stupid. Please. I can't with you anymore. I can't. It was brought to my
Harrison H. Smith, they swapped Iraq for Iran and WMDs for nuclear weapons, and people are still falling for it. We've spent the last 30 years warning against this, but they're still falling for it. Yeah. Yep. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to Father's Day wish to people. Okay, so the guy on the left was arrested and convicted for illegally selling missiles to Iran during the Reagan administration. The guy on the right is a Fox News military analyst who thinks Iran shouldn't have missiles. And they're the same guy. So very interesting there. Not surprising. Oliver North.
Yeah, boy. On our way to protest. Just kidding. We have jobs.
So funny. Yeah, so... Oh, this is a bone of contention with a lot of people. This is also getting me a lot of heat, and I need to share it anyways, right? Because for me, like, the truth matters more than getting along with people. And so I know a lot of people like Laura Loomer. I understand that. They fully support her. I don't. In a lot of things, this being one of them. So how is it not America first to congratulate those who just made sure Islamists who chant death to America and who openly plotted to assassinate President real Donald Trump never have an opportunity to have a nuke? Explain it to me. So again, propaganda and a lot of misinformation there. She literally doesn't have any idea what she's talking about in this regard. And I am a military analyst, by the way, and I did serve in the military for 15 years in the infantry, and I did deploy to war. Laura Loomer. So anyway, from Ian Carroll. Because those who sex traffic children to blackmail American politicians are doing it and dragging us into a foreign war against the will of the American people. Because your interests are clearly only America first if they put Israel first, meaning your interests are not America first. And that was really well said. So yeah, that's what I feel about that. So I'm going to share Viva Frei. I'm really interested in what he says about what's going on right now. I had about, maybe I didn't. Anyway.
Highly enriched uranium.
The day is Friday the 13th. Viva Frei, in an attempt to make everyone happy.
Okay, so this is from a couple of days ago, but I'm still going to share it.
Has decided to start off today's show, not only with a discussion about Israel.
I've only watched like a minute of it. I wanted to get like my live reaction of this video because I'm interested to see what other significant, prominent podcasters say about this.
The video of Bibi Netanyahu, because this will surely bring both sides together and will cause the chat to remain civil and, above all else, logical. I present to you Bibi.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Today, the Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear Holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, as Prime Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Tonight, Israel backs those words with action. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's
targeted innocent civilians,
ballistic missile program.
Also in Palestine, also in other areas.
Last year, Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions. Iran is gearing up to produce 10,000s of those ballistic missiles within 3 years.
It's a much longer press conference. The amazing thing is, I know the degree to which I loathe Hillary Clinton, Kathy Hochul, Joe Biden, Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney. And when they speak, it makes me almost physically ill listening to them. I appreciate that there are people out there who loathe Netanyahu to such a degree that listening to him talk is tantamount to listening to the Hillary shrill, the Kamala cackle, the Justin Trudeau. There is a meme going around, and you should be careful, double check, triple check your homework, people. There's a meme going around now that we're listening to Bibi Netanyahu yet again talk about how close Iran is to developing nuclear weapons. It could be weeks, years, months. Let me get the meme. The meme probably should not be repeated because I'm not convinced about the accuracy of the meme to the letter. Now, in terms of it being accurate in spirit, maybe, because we've heard Netanyahu talk for, I would say, decades almost now, a very long time, about how close Iran is to getting nuclear weapons. Repeatedly over and over again, but not like this. When something is a screen grab at people, I'm not trying to put power mapping on blast. I just saw this going around, and it was a meme that was almost too perfect, too convenient to fit the circumstances, which caused me to question whether or not it was sufficiently accurate.
Yep.
Don't fall for the meme, I would say. Double check, because as far as I can tell, no, this meme is not literally accurate, though it might be in spirit. Netanyahu has been talking about Iran's capabilities for some time now. And the reality is they've been pursuing this for years. And I think if there's one thing that we can probably all agree on, let's just say you hate Netanyahu, you hate Israel, you hate Zionism,
don't hate Zionism.
And you take the painstaking gymnastics of the mind to distinguish that from Jews in general. Okay, fine. Fair. I think we can all agree that we would not want to have a nuclear-armed Iran. Objectively, Iran sponsors terrorism. Some of you might want to say that's not terrorism, it's resistance fighting, whatever. They objectively
they fund terrorism too. He's right, absolutely right.
Fund terrorism and or what the terrorist sympathizers would want to call resistance.
Yeah, people who hate.
I think we could all agree that we would not want Tehran or Iran to have a nuclear weapon. With that said, I think we can also say that we don't want to get bogged down or drawn into a World War III where nuclear armed allies or potential partners come to the defense of an attack on a not yet nuclear armed Iran. I think we all would be of the opinion that more wars in the Middle East, I would say they don't serve anybody's interest. They don't serve the right people's interest. And when you have Netanyahu, who has been licking at the chops for a war with Iran for years, decades, possibly, now on the eve of what looked like might have been something of successul potential negotiations between America.
I literally have goosebumps. Like, I literally do. I wish my recording could work. But it's so hard to find someone that's on the, like, you would consider to be on, like, the right side of the political spectrum or whatever, that's actually calling this out. Like, I'm literally, like, mind blown. I couldn't even imagine someone like, I just, like, you don't hear it a lot, right? And so, yeah, so in my network, I'll say, just to be clear, people like, there's not people that, like, hate Israel, that hate Jews, that hate anything like that, but we're sharing information regarding Netanyahu and Smotrich and Ben Gvir and others. Ben Gvir, people that have been corrupt within the government, unfortunately, and have been doing it for many years. And if you watch the BB files, I did link it already a few minutes ago. And it's very clear that Netanyahu does not care about people within his country. He clearly does not care. He's putting them at risk on a daily basis. He's inciting violence, fueling the fire, and committing war crimes within his own country and so many other countries. And so, yeah, anyways, it's just nice to hear someone calling it out and then doesn't feel afraid, I guess, of the backlash, whatever you're going to call it, of the freaking trolls that like to attack. And I think that he's Jewish too. So also, like, it's also refreshing to have people that, that are calling out, I guess you would say, not their own, because I hate saying that, because I think that Viva's great, and I think that Netanyahu is a literal war criminal. And so, but anyways, yeah. 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 So, like, and you agree as well. Yeah, there are so many people that are just fake right. I like that. I like that term. Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to keep sharing this. Very interesting.
And Iran, in order to ensure that Iran does not pursue a militarized nuclear weapons program. And then on the eve of that, you have Israel going in and striking Tehran. But if you don't know the details of this, because it happened yesterday.
And the irony is about that comment too, and I think you're a Nazi or whatever if you talk about it. The irony is, it's not irony, it's awful. But I would classify someone like Netanyahu as more of a Nazi than anything else, right? Like, if you want to, like, look at historical context and the comparisons, like this annexationist type, like, it's mind blowing. And yeah, it's wild times. Not a Nazi, by the way. I definitely oppose that regime as well. Those ideologies, absolutely disgusting.
And it's, fog of war info's coming out, and in the early stages of it, you're going to have people who are going to want to make this look more accurate than it might have been. You're going to want people intimidated by the intel. You're going to want people intimidated by the Operation Rising Lion. Not an overnight operation, by the way, which leads to some more questions, is as you have Donald Trump's administration trying to work a deal with Iran, you have Israel behind the scenes planning this operation for years, apparently. Inside, this is the secret war with Iran. That's my footstool because my feet don't touch the ground. Inside Israel's secret war with Iran. This is coming out of Fox News, so take it with the grain of salt that you think is most warranted. Mossad commandos, hidden drones, and the strike that stunned Tehran. It's like PR for Israel's intelligence. Mossad worked with a huge number of people, a mass of agents deep inside Iran, operating at the highest level of penetration imaginable, says senior Israeli security official. I don't think anybody wants a nuclear-armed Iran. In ordinary circumstances, one would say, all right, anything that puts them back in their nuclear military aspirations would be good. I read this, and you know the very same questions I asked on October 8th. For a country that has intelligence, assets, security that is second to none, and now they're describing what they did in Tehran, my obvious questions are, what in the name of sweet holy hell then went wrong on October 7th or before? Didn't have any of this stuff? From the beginning, you have had the people who want to see conspiracy, want to be black-pilled and whatever, and you can't blame them, saying, my goodness, this October 7 atrocity, and I'm not entertaining the ideas that it didn't happen. People want to say, oh, okay, it wasn't 1,200 people. Okay, it was 1,200 people, but 500 were caught in crossfire, friendly fire, as we call it. Discussions that you'll never get to the bottom of because you can't agree on reality. How did October 7 happen to that extent? And people were saying, well, it's an atrocity.
Because Netanyahu allowed it and wanted it to happen. That's just my opinion on that. And absolutely, people died. It was horrific. And the numbers were at first, and again, this is just, again, to cause confusion and distraction and cause us to divide and the internal fighting, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, horrific. And I share a lot of that on my Rumble videos, like witness accounts, testimonies, footage, all of that stuff. The IDF actually shooting on their own, etc. Like, this is not negotiable. These things did happen, and they're obviously, like, I share the videos as well, and it's on the BB files. Like, these friggin' terrorists, these radical extremist fucking losers, murdering people. Oh my God, literally innocent people about doing their own friggin', like, minding their own business and being attacked, right? And even animals, right? And it's just so fucked up. Like, even that dog getting shot, you know, like that friggin' video. God, these people are crazy. And yeah, that's all I'll say about that for now. We'll see what else he says.
That will be exploited to annex.
9/11 happened too. A lot of people died, and the blowback from that was war in the Middle East, and we lost a lot of people as well, and a lot of civilians died as well.
More territory in Gaza, and as a pretext to go to war with Iran. Do recall, let me bring this back out for a second. Do recall what one of the conspiracy theories about 9/11 and October 7 was compared to 9/11 is that 9/11 was used as the pretext to immediately invade Afghanistan because Osama bin Laden was behind the 9/11 attacks, and then tangentially as the pretext to invade Iraq because Iraq had weapons of mass destruction that never existed. And so 9/11, the catastrophe that it was, the official narrative, many of us still don't believe. Building 7 didn't fall down on its own. 9/11 was used as the pretext to invade not one but two Middle Eastern countries, Afghanistan, then Iraq. Regime change in Iraq on a pretext that has turned out to be a historical lie and not a historical inaccuracy. Yep. It was a known lie at the time, but when you have two reports prepared by intelligence, one says they have it, one says they don't, and you rely on the one that says they have it in order to justify a regime change war, you've lived a lie. And once you've lived through that lie, you then look at all other lies and say, holy crab apples, they've always been lying. 9/11 was the pretext to invade Afghanistan, was the pretext to invade Iraq on the basis of weapons of mass destruction that never existed, and it was known at the time. October 7, people were afraid was going to be used as a pretext to annex more of Gaza, and that has happened, and used as a pretext to start a war with Iran, who backs Hezbollah.
He's impressing me right now so much.
And now that seems to be happening. Listen to the details of this, and always compare it with the catastrophic intelligence failure that was October 7. At the very most innocuous and most innocent explanation, it was a catastrophic intelligence failure by the most sophisticated army on earth. Catastrophic intelligence failure by the most sophisticated intelligence agencies on earth. Listen to what they did here. Israel's overnight strike on Iran was not only one of the most ambitious aerial campaigns in recent history, it was the result of years of covert planning. surveillance, and infiltration by Israeli intelligence. Bulldozers and paragliders. While dozens of fighter jets bombed nuclear and military targets across Iran early Friday morning, the groundwork had long been laid by Mossad agents working in lockstep with Israeli military. The same Mossad that...
It's not even close. It's not, I mean, you've got, not even close. Multiple intelligence agencies internationally as well. And so, yeah, Viva's bang on. Like, I'm really impressed with this. I want to watch this whole thing almost.
Was derelict leading up to October 7th. The left in Israel says that Netanyahu let it happen on purpose to justify annexation. The right says that Mossad let it happen on purpose to make Netanyahu look like an incompetent leader to oust him from power. Codenamed Kilavi, Rising Lion. The preemptive operation was the product of unprecedented coordination between Israeli air forces, the military-industrial directorate, Mossad, the country's defense industries. For years, they worked shoulder to shoulder to gather the intelligence files needed to eliminate Iran's most sensitive military and nuclear assets. Senior Israeli intelligence, Mossad worked with a huge number of people, a mass of agents deep inside Iran, operating at the highest level of penetration imaginable. Some of the agents were restrained as commando fighters to carry out mission-critical operations. The work culminated in what the official described as a 3-layered strike. Quote, we eliminated vast areas of Iran's surface-to-surface and surface-to-air missile infrastructure, a massive number of senior scientists, and large portions of their air defense systems. We established a drone base inside Iran, and at 0 hour, Mossad operatives retrieved them from hiding spots. We placed precision missiles on numerous vehicles and embedded additional missiles throughout the country, hidden inside rocks. We activated this entire array in precise coordination with Israeli Air Force. They launched strikes, yada, yada, we get into the rest of this. This is what they did here, and October 7, bulldozers and paragliders, because they were too reliant on the Iron Dome, and it took 12 plus hours in some areas for the Israeli defense to respond. And it's not for lack of asking the questions that the answers haven't been forthcoming, but those answers haven't been forthcoming.
They have not.
And so the question is this right now. What in the hell is this Netanyahu sabotaging Trump's attempt to finally have a lasting peace in the Middle East? Is this Trump using, I'm referring to them as a sort of a John Bolton type mad dog negotiating partner to weaken Iran and then make them more amenable to something of a negotiation? I'll poll the chat, or at least I'll poll it with my eyes visually to see what people think there. But let me bring up a few things here, because it's quite amazing what we're seeing on the internet in terms of takeaways from this.
Yep.
White House Secretary of State Marco Rubio said this last night. Let me make sure this is last night, June 13. Yeah, last night. Statement from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Quote, tonight, Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary for its self-defense. President Trump and the administration have taken all necessary steps to protect our forces and remain in close contact with our regional partners. Let me be clear, every time, Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. I hate let me be clear, people, even when it's someone who I like and or respect saying it. It says nothing except casts suspicion on what's about to be said. Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. So the question is, what the hell's going on here? It sounds like the White House yesterday is, to some extent, if not throwing Israel under the bus, saying, ally or not, we can't control them. They announced what they're going to do. We're not going to hold them back. Maybe we tried and we couldn't. Maybe they're humiliating us, and now we've got to sort of throw them under the bus. You got Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. We didn't know about this. It's unilateral. Iran, don't attack us because we've got nothing to do with it. Okay. Then we got Donald John Trump in a post from Michael Trace. Let me see when this post was. This is June 13, 5:56 a.m. Assuming he's in the same time zone as us, the man is up early, working hard. Donald John Trump on Truth says, quote, or I'm quoting him, I'm reading his post. I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words to, quote, just do it, end quote. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told, that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and that Israel has a lot of it with more to come, and they know how to use it. Certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They are all dead now, and it will only get worse. There has already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. No more death, no more destruction. Just do it before it's too late. God bless you all. That's an interesting post. Then you got Michael Tracy, who I'm sort of having a bit of a fun tiff with on Twitter now, saying, pundits and influencers last night, quote, Israel has made a mockery of the USA. This is deliberate sabotage of Trump. Netanyahu must pay. I don't know who was saying that, but let's just assume that he's, what's the word? Hyperbolically summarizing what some on the right are saying. Influencers, I don't know what that word means anyway. Let's just say some people are saying something like that. Trump within hours takes credit for the war. Trump can always be relied upon to swiftly humiliate his most deluded and sycophantic boosters.
Oh my God.
In response to that tweet, I just said, like, look, I read the post. I don't see where Trump takes credit for the war. Maybe I'm just a sycophant. And that was Mike Tracy's pithy response. I said, it's interesting spin or interpretation, and I know people will accuse me of similar spin or interpretation. I do not read this as him taking credit for the war. I see it as him using Israel as a convenient tool in the negotiations, although as Trump cannot control, almost as though Trump cannot control Netanyahu, which might piss a lot of people off here, which comes with its own problems, but distinct from the accusation that he's taking credit for the escalation. It seems he's sending a message to other countries that America's weaponry should instill fear, which is a distinct message to convey. Who might he be talking to? Vicariously, indirectly, maybe Russia. Who can convince me my interpretation is wrong? I gotta get the pithy Twitter response from Michael Tracy. I'm just gonna go to my Twitter feed. It drives me nuts. To some extent, like I recognize I can be a pithy asshole on Twitter, and it's deliberately when I do it. But even when I'm a pithy asshole, I still put in substance in the ad hominem. I asked Mike Tracy. There we go. Oh, no. In response to that, he says, you're a great example of the deluded sycophants.
Oh, my God.
I was referring to. To which I respond, no substance, just ad hominem. Once a liberal, always a liberal. That's ad hominem. You got anything of substance
back in the character
to respond to that
conversation?
So the question is this. What the hell is going on? Do I have the video of Trump talking about Michael Bolton? It's not Michael Bolton. It's John Bolton. I know I have it here. I got it in the back somewhere. George, here. Do you remember what Trump said about John Bolton? That he was a madman, but a useful madman? And that maybe, there hasn't been a massive rallying cry to support Iran, even among the Middle East. And so maybe even the neighbors of Iran don't want a nuclear-armed Iran and don't mind letting Israel be the bad guys that do it. And maybe Trump, who doesn't mind negotiating with Iran, but certainly doesn't want to see them become nuclear capable, doesn't mind a mad dog Bolton of a nation.
I think there would be a much better chance of a peace deal and negotiations being made with Iran and Israel if Netanyahu was in jail. And so that would help a lot of things out, right? This guy is corrupted. This guy is being investigated. He's clearly, anyways. And so he's enabling and fueling this war as a distraction, like I keep on saying. And there's better people that can lead in Israel. A lot of better people that can lead in Israel and get them out of this friggin' mess that Netanyahu's getting them involved in.
Taking out whatever Louise, the nuclear stuff, nuclear capabilities Iran has. Refresh your memory about what Trump said about Mad Dog Bolton.
Bolton, a real dope, but I thought he'd be great because he was so stupid. He was like a boiler. Every time, if somebody shot down a little tiny crappy drone that cost about $15, he'd want to go to war with Russia. I said, no, I think he was great for me, though, for a period of time because He was a nut job, and everybody, I could see his face get red with that stupid white mustache. And he'd be ready to explode. And this was good for me. I went to Kim Jong-un in North Korea. I took this moron with me, and he never said anything.
Oh my God.
But when Kim Jong-un saw him, he said, oh shit, I think the guy wants to go to war. So he was great for me to negotiate with. The same thing with Russia. You know, Putin saw him, I'd be very nice. I'd say, hi, Vladimir, how you doing? And then Putin's, 2 rows back, and I'd see that moron, and I'd say, holy shit, this guy wants to go to war with me. And I got a lot of what I wanted.
And I got a lot of what I wanted. First of all, Trump could be what makes him so amazing is that he is basically a stand-up comic of the highest caliber. That's not my original idea. That's Joe Rogan. Apply Trump's description of Bolton, mutatis mutandis, to Israel and Netanyahu. Brianna Morello, and this is not to put anybody on blast, this is a legitimate disagreement and respectful disagreement. And also, I'll pick the brains of people who I disagree with. Brianna Morello, yesterday...
I enjoy having conversations with people that where we don't have like the same views or opinions when it's respectful, right? When we can actually get a dialogue going. And there's a patriot in the U.S. and she recorded herself having a conversation with her mother, and they're both on different sides of the protest, but it was a really respectful dialogue, back and forth, listening to each other, providing their examples. Both of them actually gave good points with why they supported like one side or the other. And I would say this patriot, like she had a stronger argument. She's it is what it is. But again, there were good points made by her mother, but there were, again, with the human rights piece and the illegal immigration, etc., and the hypocrisy with the U.S. and how it's being handled as opposed to other countries. But again, a lot can be learned just from having these conversations. I've been saying that we should be doing this for years. And anyway.
Aspect of this said, if Iran strikes Israel, we need to sever ties with Israel. Enough is enough. Then someone thinking it was an own on me says, did she still take sides with the ones who chant death to America, or did you help her see the light, Viva? And I said, what's wrong with her tweet? I can appreciate people saying, we don't want any country, let alone, it's Israel, but let alone a country in the Middle East, dragging us into World War III.
Yeah.
And if they go against our foreign policy in an overt way that compromises our national security and the national security of our personnel in the area, I can see people saying sever the ties with them. That might be a knee-jerk reaction, however. And I would say maybe, first of all, there's nothing wrong with that tweet. It's a legitimate, you bet, sever ties with Ukraine. Nobody has problems saying that for some reason. Ukraine is on the verge of getting Europe and the world into a World War III with Russia by doing provocative things like drone bombing their nuclear or their aerial bombers deep within Russia. And there's a lot.
Oh my God, yeah. Like I want to share the whole thing. I don't want to it's not like I would ever take viewers from Viva. That's hilarious to even but I hope that people go to his channel and like this video anyways and look at his other content. Because even with Ukraine, like the ghost of Kiev, that wasn't real. That was pushed. That was propaganda by the Ukrainian government and the people that they buy off, like these social media influencers and these propagandists and people involved in psychological operations under contracts. Like they're pushing this stuff, right? And so the ghost of Kiev, that was fake. Snake Island, that was a lie. A lie. No one died Snake Island by you Russian friggin' military. Out of your minds for and government. The government Biden was saying it, Zelensky was saying it. People within the Canadian government were saying it. Even people like that I freaking know in multiple different capacities, including in GAC, in these contracting agencies, the military, like including NATO, the Five. It was wild, and even the Polish farmers. This was Ukrainian air defense. That was not Russia. And even the highest levels of the Canadian government were even on LinkedIn posting about it, blaming Russia, talking about like getting us involved, NATO involved in a world war, the highest ranking military member we had at the time. And so I countered it and I said this was Ukrainian air defense. And I'm like, this is more propaganda that people are pushing to justify getting us into a war with Russia and ergo the friggin' a world war. And it's wild to me that's even being entertained. And so the lies kept on happening. And there were people that were doing medical evacs because Ukrainians, innocent civilians, are dying. and it's by Ukrainians and Russians and people that are also like again coming in from other countries as part of contracts, etc. That are unfortunately, and I mean this respectfully, like actually not helping right now, and it's I hate saying it, but it's just a reality, right? It's just causing more death and destruction while these lobbyist bureaucrats within government get a check and kickbacks and money laundering and things like that, and it's absolutely appalling. And so much more information that was being pushed, regarding Ukraine and Russia. And again, like, and the lowest numbers, it's hundreds of thousands of people that are dead right now. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and Russians dead. Upwards of almost over 1 million people are saying as well. Close to 1.5 million people that are possibly dead. That is a lot of people, ladies and gentlemen, for a proxy war that again only initiated by corrupted politicians and bureaucrats. Who don't have any morality or ethical foundation or framework that they abide by clearly, and it's frustrating that we can talk about that now. I was like me sharing that information, like my accounts were zapped, like, and that was right after the Emergency Act was declared in Canada, and I was arguing that would be unconstitutional, and I was right. Only found out to be right in 2024 by an incredible judge named Mosley, who overturned it and deemed that the declaration of the Emergency Act was unconstitutional and unlawful. And and there were apparently a couple of lawyers within Ottawa. I had no idea until yesterday, which like blew my mind. And I'm wondering if Viva Frei knows these people. I'm not going to name them obviously on here, but they were like, I wouldn't necessarily call them activists, but they were like logical, level-headed lawyers that were speaking out and even part of protests, peaceful ones, or committees where they were actually trying to say that as well, right? That declaring the Emergency Act would be unconstitutional, it would be unlawful, etc., even before it was declared as well. So yeah, I would love to talk to these people and pick their brains on what they were going through and what they're up to now, and if they're a part of any like legal battles right now with government, just because of everyone that was impacted with this. Because even with the Methylquin mass tort that I've been part of at least since like 2018, I want to say 2019 at the latest, we're still waiting in the courts for that to go through. Yeah, so it's wild to me that we can share the truth eventually about so many other countries now in the last year or so, but this is still the golden ticket to censorship.
A lot of people, myself included, end the support, sever the ties with Ukraine. So anyone that's going to feign outrage that someone says the exact same thing with Israel, but Israel's an ally. Well, people say Ukraine's an ally.
Yep.
At what point does an ally cease being an ally if they stop acting like an ally?
Oh my God.
So there's nothing wrong with that position. I would suggest, however, that there might be a deeper play here, which is to let Israel take the brunt of the negative publicity and the blowback of potentially weakening Iran so that they then sit down for negotiations on better terms with Trump. It's possible. Whether or not it's true, whether or not it's accurate, whether or not it's my favorable interpretation. The irony is someone's going to accuse me of being biased and partial with a favorable interpretation. That interpretation makes Israel look bad. That interpretation makes Trump maybe look a little bad. That, okay, he doesn't have full control over them, so he's trying to spin it in his favor, or he's trying to use the fact that he doesn't have full control over them for his personal benefit. At the end of the day, the buck would stop if Trump says, you guys stop now. So we'll see. Yeah. But that is the news.
And within Israel right now, there are people that they've co-opted the mainstream media on the left and right, radicals, ideologues, so much influence within Israel, and a lot of propaganda, just like in Canada, just like in the US, just like in Ukraine and other areas. And yeah, so calling that out as well, right? And so it's and the brunt of the targeted attacks, unfortunately, now are against people that are Jewish or people that are Israeli that have been protesting. Look at the BB files for years now to get Netanyahu arrested and in jail, just like I've been saying about Justin Trudeau for Canada as a Canadian. And and so these people absolutely have had a target on their friggin' backs. And it's unfortunate because there's so many people that are literally trying to say the same thing that Viva is saying. And, especially in Israel, it's not popular. But anyway, this was really good. He's very knowledgeable. It's very, I don't know, you say, like, I guess calming, therapeutic to the soul to hear people that are considered to be like a right wing actually know all of this stuff. Like, it's like stuff that like 99.9% of people within government now, like they're not tracking at all. They have no clue what Viva is saying. So again, like if I was ever the leader of Canada or whatever, like it would be someone like Viva Fry that I would want to be as part of my cabinet in some capacity. And yeah, and it has nothing to do with me being on a show or any of that stuff. I have been on other shows, and I've called people out and severed relationships and stuff like that. Like people that have really big like influential social media platforms. But anyway, and so I also bought his book, Louis the Lobster Returns to the Sea. My freaking camera's not working. I'm sorry. And I'm gonna read it, and I'm gonna keep it. And yeah, one day if we ever meet in person, he can meet. I can meet his wife and he meet my partner. Like I would want him to sign that. I would just keep it with my record and my collections. But anyways, on that note, again, I want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers and stepfathers out there. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.